Hey, Brother Dave here. Brother Dave's Hillbilly Homestead. Brother Dave speaking. You already knew that. Hey, Guppy, you want to be in the video? Yes, you do. Oh, good girl. All right. Hey, today I thought I would talk a bit about something called square foot gardening because while it's a little bit more work to implement and plant versus planting in rows, if you plant by the square foot, you can fit a whole lot more stuff in a very small space. Now let's take a look here at what I'm doing. Now you can see all this stuff here was planted using a square foot method. And the square foot method optimizes with beds 4 feet wide. Why 4 feet wide? Because from either side, you can comfortably reach 2 feet into the bed. So that's why we go with 4 feet wide. Now, if you're 7 feet tall, you could go with 6 foot wide beds, but most people aren't 7 feet tall. So anyway, all of this here is planted under a square foot method. And just to give you a little update, the cabbage is looking pretty good. A couple of them, not so good. I might get 7 or 8 cabbages. I don't need a whole lot of cabbage, and one cabbage head is a lot of food just for me. Now right here we've got some asparagus, and there, and there, and there, and behind it, oh, and some more. We planted a whole bunch of asparagus roots in here, so we're expecting a big asparagus patch. Of course, you can't pick asparagus for about the first 2 or 3 years till it gets established. In here the leeks are doing good. Yeah, I got to get in here and do a little bit of weeding. This was the first year till for this particular section, so there are a lot more weeds coming back up through from the weed clumps underneath. But I'll get to it. I'll get around to it. Broccoli, cauliflower, all looking spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I have a lot of that this year. And the kale is really taking off, with the exception of 1, 2, maybe 3 of them not so good. Brussels sprouts looking great, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. That means I'm going to have a lot of Brussels sprouts, and I love Brussels sprouts. Now, when you plant using a square foot method, you always walk in the paths. You never put your foot step inside the planting bed, because what you do is you compress the soil, and that stops the feeder roots from going out. Yeah, spinach is looking good. Swiss chard, spectacular. Oh, we're going to do good on Swiss chard this year. I can't cross over up there. Peppers are looking pretty good. They got, some of them got a little bit bit, and I'm going to lose, like I said, a few days ago. I'll lose that one, probably. It might come back, but it'll be a long time coming. And these other 3 down here, they're going to come back, but they're going to take a while. But those are my jalapenos, and jalapenos really produce a lot of peppers. So I'm not going to have to worry about having enough jalapenos. I'll still have enough to give away quite a few. The tomatoes, 5. 5 of 8 are going to survive and do well, and I got 1 yellow tomato left. Now, not everything does well with a square foot planting method. For example, if you got something that spreads like squash, or over here watermelons, or cantaloupe, or honeydew, then planting by the square foot doesn't really do you much good, because it's going to just spread wherever it wants to spread. So I took advantage of the fact that the sawdust, you see, I've got sawdust and grass clippings in here. Where I had the grass clippings, that decayed down really nicely within the first season. The sawdust, not so much. The sawdust is going to take a couple of years, and you really can't plant very well directly in deep sawdust. And this is deep 6 to 8 inch deep sawdust. But you can plant where the grass clippings were. So I adapted a little bit, and believe me, I didn't make this alternate this way on purpose. It just did because I combined mowing with gathering sawdust, and it just worked out that way. And once I looked at it this year, I said, well, you know what? I can plant in there if I plant the viney things. So here we go. All this whole area is going to be totally covered by viney things. You won't even be able to see the sawdust. In fact, the vines will probably reach out into the middle here. Most of this stony area will be covered with vines too. It'll look like it really was a very good use of the space that I had. Now, I said I wasn't going to do any vertical growth structures, but then I planted the cucumbers, and I remembered 25, maybe 30 years ago, the first time I planted cucumbers, and I did not put them up a trellis. Well, the cucumbers are green, the leaves are green, they're underneath the leaves. You just can't find the dang cucumbers, and they end up getting really big or soft and pithy, and I like my cucumbers small and crunchy. And plus, it's just nice to harvest from a trellis, especially when you're harvesting small stuff. So that brings us over here to the last section of the garden to get planted, and you see I've lined out 2 rows here, or 2 beds, and in this one planted all the leeks, a couple of beets that I had sprouted, green onions and red onions, and the only thing left in the greenhouse now is a 1 flat of yellow onions, but I got yellow onions planted up there, so I'm in no hurry to get those yellow onions done. Sunflowers over there, and over here, what I'm really happy with, these beets. I left these beets to overwinter because beets are biennial and they won't produce seeds until the 2nd year. Well, now they're putting out a whole bunch of big long stems. The first year they'll just put out leaves, leaves, leaves. Now they're putting out these big long flower stems, and you can see you kind of see the flower buds close to the tip of that one right there. So we're going to make some beet seeds this year, and that makes my beet crop regenerative. Not just sustainable, but regenerative. Over here we've got sunflowers. Over there we've got corn after the sunflowers, and then we've got, where you see that dark color, that's carrots. And I just sprinkle a little bit of potting soil over the top to just barely cover the carrots. And in here we planted some more beets. All right, now just to give a demonstration of square foot planting on steroids. Okay, all this stuff up here, I just eyeballed it. I know the spacing after so many years, and I really don't need to measure out every single one to plant it at the optimum distance. I can pretty much eyeball it. The exception for that is when you come to plant seeds like corn. When you're planting one seed and then poke it in, you forget where the last seed was. So I made this little template here, and everywhere on there where it has a little C on it, that means put corn here. Otherwise I use it for beets. And you see the ones with circles are when I'm planting something that needs a 1 foot spacing, which I rarely use because that's usually full grown plants, and you can eyeball that pretty well. Okay, getting up and down is harder as we get older. We're trying to groan our way up and fall our way down. And I'm just going to plant this one little section here just to show you how it goes with square foot gardening with corn. Okay, we just drop 1 seed in each one of these holes, and I have holes in my hand, so sometimes I'll drop a few. Let me grab that one, put it here, grab that one, put it there, grab that one, put it there, get a few more. Oops. I only drop seeds when I'm trying to shoot a video. And anyway, you almost get the idea, but I got to finish up here just to show you how this proceeds. Okay. Oh, we dropped 2. Oh, that last one's hard to reach. All right. Now that I got them all in there, I got this little stake right here, and that marks where I was. And now I'll move it up here, so that'll mark the next where the next bed will start. And I'll take that, move it out of the way. And before I plant, I'll level that out by hand. Let me just go in here and pick up the few double seeds. So I don't want to double seed this because this is just a 1-year-old corn seed. So it is going to probably have about 100% germination rate. Now what you see here basically is I've got 1 row. If I was planting in rows, I'd have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows. I'll get 8 rows in an 8-foot wide section, whereas if I was planting corn in rows, I would only get 2 rows in an 8-foot wide section. So that's 4 times as much can grow in this 4-foot wide space as opposed to planting in rows. And how that works out is with a 70-foot long bed, it's the equivalent of planting a 2 rows 300 feet long. And 300 feet would take me all the way out past the road out there. I just wouldn't have room for it. It uses up a lot of space. And why do they put the rows so far apart when farmers are planting corn and other big plants? Well, they put them so far apart so that they can get the tractors through the fields to spray for pesticides, for herbicides and whatnot, and also for harvesting. But using the square foot method, well, you don't need to run a tractor through. You're doing everything by hand. So that's it for today. Brother Dave's doing square foot gardening on steroids, and I hope y'all learned something. Have a blessed day. I love you. God loves you. Guppy loves you from somewhere, but she's scared to death to come into the garden ever since she touched that electric fence just one time. I say, good for that. Because she used to like lay on top of the things that I planted. She's not doing that anymore. Good deal. Bye now.